Nigeria's oil production outlook is under tremendous pressure as technical and operational issues, along with mounting security concerns, are likely to persist over a short term. Industry sources and analysts say it will interest you to know that the country has the capacity to pump around 2.2 million barrels per day of crude and condensate. But in recent months, its output has been languishing below 1.55 million barrels per day. But it only pumped 1.23 trillion barrels per day of crude oil and 300,000 barrels per day of condensate last month, as it remains hamstrung by operational setbacks, with key pipelines facing persistent sabotage. However, several analysts have said that Nigeria may drop further in the status of Africa's biggest producer if the government does not urgently address the situation it faces today. Well, our guest today might be able to provide solutions to some of those problems facing the industry. Of course, joining me live via Zoom will be to set an agenda for this sector is Mr. Ladipo Soyombo. He is the managing director at Swagelok Nigeria Limited and Nigeria's representative of P2 Energy Solutions. He has an extensive history of working in the oil and gas industry, skilled petroleum economist, product optimization, reservoir engineer, and reservoir management, as well as well testing. Thank you very much for your time. It's good to see you today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, before we go into some details, can we just do an overview of the challenges facing Nigeria's oil and gas industry as at today? Before we go into some specifics, let's do an overview.
Yes, thanks again. We can see you mentioned some, but largely when we look at the localized issues in Nigeria and the challenges we have, it will start from the lack of critical infrastructure. Then we have to look at the security concerns and also the uncertainties in policy regimes and the administration of the national oil company, which has gotten some level of structure in recent times with the passing of PIB. But for a while, from 2008 till now, there has been that struggle, and that has created a lot of uncertainties within the plans of the investors in making decisions and FIDs. Yeah.
Okay, now moving on to some specifics. We have not also been, we are consistently not been able to meet our oil quota with OPEC. This is also very worrisome. How does it come to you?
All right. So, I mean, when we talk about the challenges generally that the oil and gas industry has faced, so beyond the localized challenge of Nigeria or Africa, generally speaking, we had the issue of the COVID-19 and the global economic meltdown that was associated with that. And obviously, prices globally dropped so low, and the sentiment was that many people were not interested anymore in investing, especially obviously in the upstream sector of the oil and gas industry. However, things have evolved, and there seems to be some level of increase in those investments. But we still need to go back to certain technical issues that Nigeria still faces. And I talked about the security concerns. Even though our capacity would be to be able to produce more than that, even more than the OPEC quota, we have to realize that there are a lot of security concerns that plague the industry, especially in the onshore part of the upstream sector. So you have a lot of oil theft still going on, and a lot of damages to critical infrastructure and pipeline vandalism, which doesn't allow us reach our quota, or even go negotiate for better quotas going forward.
Now, it is also said that one of Nigeria's problems is the unreliability of data, not only in the oil and gas industry, but they say that is also an issue with the sector. We don't even know how much crude oil we produce daily. Yes, we get figures always from the NNPC, but let me say that how can all firms in the country as a whole come together to address this problem? How can we get it sorted? Accountability one way or the other, particularly with our crude production.
Yes, thank you again. You see, with what the PIA has, brought about certain solutions concerning the administration of the national oil company and administrating the oil and gas industry in general. Now, we can see that the regulatory policies that the PIA is bringing will make NMPC a limited liability company, which will have the opportunity for private investment. And with the private sector coming in and the drive for the commercial viability of NMPC, there will be need for efficiency and operational intelligence, right? So what is that? It means that a lot of us have to come together as stakeholders to begin to accept digital and technological advancement within the industry and have a roadmap and a blueprint, because most of the things that that challenge us is because we are not monitoring properly. So there has to be an holistic strategy around the monitoring of the various value chain in the oil and gas industry, from hydrocarbon accounting to operational intelligence, so that we can move into predictive maintenance and begin to have a concise view of our operations so we can optimize better.
I'd like us to go into further details of how this would work. For me, I would ask this way: from the rigs, the metering systems and all of that, how can we ultimate all of this? You are more professional in the sector, but we understand some of these things. How can we practically monitor all of this and know that, yes, this is what we produce, or this is what we number of barrels per day?
Yes, so we talked about understanding that the oil and gas industry is obviously very capital intensive. So if I'm going to increase my capacity, which we want to achieve in production, and get to over 2 million barrels coming out from our country, we need to begin to look at these critical technology that we must use and put them into our budget and our planning, and know that this should be part of our financing, and we should get approvals at the beginning level. Because what we usually see is, you talked about metering systems, you talked about various kinds of technologies. Now technology has improved to the point where you just need to stick an equipment into your infrastructure without many wires or cables, and because of the technology involved, we can have real-time operation centers. So we get real-time information coming from your remote locations that begin to help you to monitor issues and monitor your partners and monitor your operations staff and what they are doing at the field locations, which now gives you the idea of the proper decision making that you require. So my advice is, these technologies, which some like P2 Energy Solutions, which we talked about, have improved in order to be able to monitor and predict better performance.
Yesterday the president was talking about the power sector, and many were able to pick the issues around the privatization and all of that, thinking that there might need to be an overall. Do you also think that we might need an overall of the entire upstream, midstream, downstream of our oil and gas industry? Or what are the specifics? What do you think can be done?
Yes. I mean, that entire overhaul will be far-fetched, because there are certain things that have obviously worked, and we have gotten to the point where the PIB has been signed, and we see some traction with NMPC and what they are doing on their board level, and we hope for better implementations of the PIA now. So yes, not necessarily the overhaul, but it's that commitment to implementing some of the things already in the PIA that we already have noted, and that joint agreement within the private sector as well, to be able to build a better industry. So some of the things already in the PIA, like unlocking the gas opportunities, and which will help in the gas to power project, because statistically I think the Minister of State of Petroleum had said this, that in 2020, the first 5 months, we fled about 90 billion cubic feet of gas, and which is almost costing around $230 million. So if we can unlock that, the gas sector alone, which is also a better or a clean fuel, we have the opportunity to, improve the industry at large.
I'm so interested with regards to the PIA. I must tell you, because this is something that we've stayed with for a while, finally being passed into law in 2021. But I'm saying that it looks over ambitious. Do you think that we can get all of these positives from this law? From this is an act now, yeah, of course. Do you think that driving that investment, indigenizing the sector, all that it should do, and the big subsidy to be eliminated, do you see all of this happening anytime soon following the implementation of this act?
I see the potential. It's obviously going to be a journey, but every major player, I believe most of the major players in the oil and gas industry globally are in Nigeria. So definitely there is something that we have. I mean, Nigeria has gas reserves, one of the, I think, like the 9th largest in gas reserves globally. So we have the potential, we have the resources, we also have the brains, because a lot of the technology has been transferred to indigenous players, and indigenous engineers have the capacity to run things properly. So I think the commitment and the zeal from the government and the administration is really key at this point in time. But if they see the potential and the fact that the industry itself has enough potential, then that should push that zeal a little bit much further. So I really see the positivity and what it can do in the coming years, and even in this year 2022, once we begin to see the body language of the government as regards how they want to begin to implement, then the private sector also will take steps along that direction.
You talked on gas, and when I hear gas flaring, I also get scared about what we flare. And at the moment, buying cooking gas, we know what it is out there. Yes, it's a process actually, but let's look at the infrastructure, and it's also capital intensive. How do you see us playing in the gas space moving on? Because according to no more DPR, it's now the NUPRC. Now they are saying that the reserves we even have with regards to gas is more than what we even have with crude. So when can we really take advantage of this? CEO, you have more knowledge of the sector.
Yes, so like I initially said, more than the oil and gas generally, starting from the upstream, the midstream, downstream, is quite capital intensive. And that is why it's the responsibility of the government to begin to create an environment that helps investors see the chance of, or look at the opportunities within the Nigerian space in the oil and gas industry. So we talked about the uncertainties around policies and the transparency, which I believe the PIA is about to achieve in terms of how things are run, right, in the industry. So what that will do for us is, nobody wants to go and puncture a hole in the ground to get gas without long-term contracts for that will help them in recovering their funds. So basically, once that whole system is in place and we see the end-to-end value chain of gas development, it's easy now to make those investments, because the gas is already there. You have the gas, the resources are there, but obviously it needs critical infrastructure. So before we get to FID for and final investment decisions with some of these things, right? It's quite capital intensive. So investors have to see the commitment, and they have to see the total value chain being understood, which I feel the PIA begins to unveil. And there is the midstream gas infrastructure fund that is in the PIA, which will help the private sector to begin to invest into the gas sector. So I see that there could be potential there, and there are some 6 critical gas projects which the NNPC have committed to. So I see that in the coming years, we should be able to begin to untap that but there are still limitations with infrastructure. But once we can see the end in sight through the full value chain, then it becomes possible.
Great stuff. Interesting submissions there. Almost finally, let's talk about the accountability again in the industry. Like we said, recently signed PIB, signed by the president. That's a PIA now. We got a glimpse into the operations of the NNPC for 43 years. No audits and all of that. We've seen what Mele Kyari has been doing, transparency, letting us understand activities of the National Oil Company. What else needs to be done to foster accountability in the industry?
Yes, I think I talked about leveraging technology because exactly, that's very important for any industry at this point in time. Efficiency can be achieved through technology. There are various solutions which some companies like ours do, which help in monitoring, hydrocarbon accounting, end-to-end solutions of the value chain of upstream and even downstream that help you begin to monitor every aspect, and you just have real-time information about what is happening in your accounts, with your royalties, with your tax. The first step obviously is that decision to open up NNPC for, to be a commercial entity where they can have audited accounts, declare their accounts, and once they begin to leverage technology in helping them achieve those things, then we are on the way to, efficiency.
Beautifully said. Now let me allow you, but before that, it's a new year and a lot of projections everywhere for all sectors. Even we see that the crude oil market is still doing fairly well despite the Omicron variant and what's happening over there. Well, what's your projection for the industry? I'm sure a lot of projections and reprojections at this time, but what are you thinking?
Yes, quite frankly, I believe that there was fearful response to, which arguably so, to the COVID-19 and the crashing prices. So a lot of investments have not yet been made, but with coming into 2022, there's been a large gap. And we can see that even though there is the decarbonization plan and all of that, oil and gas still remains a critical part of energy. So I see that in 2022, people will be going back to certain projects because we realize that the oil is still steady around $80 now, and it's still very, very important for growth in most economies. So I still feel that in 2022, it may not be a large increase in activities, but we will see an increase in activities compared to 2021.
All right, there. It's a very good way to leave it there. And in 1 minute, you're offering this kind of services like you explained. I hope you're in talks with government and trying to sell all of these ideas to them, because in all spheres, all facets of government, we need technology to hasten up and, of course, help improve accountability across board.
Yes, we are. We keep on working with them and having meetings, and we believe that eventually, because they too they have digital technology as part of their priorities. So we hopefully believe that we'll get to do a lot of stuff with them, to partner with them to make these things possible.
Really interesting talking to you. I've been speaking to Mr. Ladipo Soyombo, who's the Chief Executive Officer at Swagelok Nigeria Limited and Nigeria representative of P2 Energy Solutions. Thank you so much. I will reach out to you when next we have issues around the sector for you to contribute your quota.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.